Hello, thanks for taking the time to review this presentation. My name is Brooke Keeler, and I've been asked to go through this slide deck with you today. In the absence of a structured forum to deliver this presentation, and the fact that there's simply not enough time for other options to be made available, we're utilizing YouTube and this slide deck to disseminate this information to everybody in the community. Like I said, my name is Brooke. I have two kids. One in kindergarten and one in first grade at Moharamit. And just so you know, neither of my children are going to be affected by the two options that have been put forth so far, or at least not directly affected in the near future. The purpose of this presentation is to make sure that every family in Madbury, Lee, and Durham have a chance to view and take a deep dive on the options that have been presented. I'm going to be showing a bunch of slides here with a lot of numbers on them. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. Feel free to pause and take a closer look. The numbers that we pulled together with a group of parents from different neighborhoods and different schools used the long-range planning committee numbers, and that's the same subset that the school used to come up with their options. This presentation is going to give you, like I said, a background on the options that have been presented so far. And then, so far there's two existing plans, but there's a third option that's been floated out to the board in the last meeting about possibly putting all the kindergartners at Mastway, and then there's a fourth option that you're going to see later in this presentation that kind of tweaks option number one, which is this forced redistricting plan. So bear with me. We're calling the fourth option that you'll see later in the slide deck the community alternative, the managed enrollment plan. And when I say bear with me, I'm doing this on short notice. I've done the best I can to pull the information together and get it across to you guys as clearly as I can. So if I stumble on my words, so be it. The background of all of this is that there's been some goals set by the school and some community goals for the district, and that is at some point to provide an all-day kindergarten. Right now there's some lunch crowding issues at Moharamit, and there are two modular classrooms at Moharamit that are not ideal and should be eliminated. Recently, it's been noted that there is an equity problem. The number of students at Moharamit is getting to a point where it's affecting the safety of those students, and that is only expected to increase, while of course Mastway's enrollment has gone down. Another goal that's been put forth is to get 5th grade out of junior high and move it back into the elementary school. And then more recently, the goals that came up at the board meeting on August 21st were to equalize enrollment, eliminate the modular classrooms, and just so everybody knows, there is a vote coming on November 20th. So these are some of the objectives that we heard at the school board meetings and in the open forums, and some of the things that parents have said that they'd like to see. We kind of divided them up into must-haves and essentials and importance, and again, this is just our opinion as a group, but under the must-haves and essentials, we'd really like to see a solution that unites the community and doesn't divide it. And clearly right now, the two solutions that have been offered have divided the community pretty intensely. We'd like to maintain or improve the quality of the elementary education that we're getting in this school district. A lot of us have moved here for it. We'd like to ensure adequate space for the special ed students at Moharamit, because right now it's not adequate. Eliminate the forced redistricting plan if possible because of the number of families that are affected and how significant that is. And there's also a lot of unfair Mastway transitions that are going to take place in one of the options as well. It's important to try and accommodate the all-day kindergarten as soon as we can. We have to bring enrollment at Mastway and Moharamit within functional capacity, which I'm going to describe here in a minute. We want to minimize the cost to the taxpayers. We'd like to minimize the bus time, especially for the real little kids. and eliminate the modular classrooms as long as suitable space exists somewhere. So let's define capacity. Capacity is defined as such. In grades 1 through 4, the maximum capacity is 22 kids per classroom, and in kindergarten it's 20 per classroom. Functional capacity, which is another term I'm going to use quite a bit here in the next few slides, is 90% of the maximum capacity. Just so you know, all of the numbers that you're going to see, again, just to reiterate this, the methodology that is used in this slide deck that was done by people in the community is the same methodology and numbers that were used by the district. Okay, so this is an important slide, and I've got to adjust this here for a second. Here we go. So, examining Mastway and Moheramet and their functional capacity. If you look in the column on the left, you can see Mastway with 17 classrooms and 2 special ed classrooms. With half-day kindergarten, the functional capacity is 369. At Moheramet, the way the school was designed, if you look all the way to the right in the dotted blue circle, 16 classrooms with 2 special ed classrooms. If you have a half-day kindergarten, the functional capacity is 349. Right now, we've had to make adjustments at Moheramet and adapt to the number of students that have enrolled in that school by adding modular classrooms, and of course this was done a while ago, and now having 1 special ed instead of 2 special ed classrooms. So that brings us up to 19 classrooms with 1 special ed and a functional capacity of 409. Here are the enrollment history and projections. As you can see, you can pause this slide and take a look at it, as you can look at it for yourself. Moheramet being in the red dotted line and Mastway being in the green with the years down at the bottom. So these are some of the options that have been presented to the board. Option 1, basically most people have thought of this one as the redistricting option. This would move 56 Moheramet students, current Moheramet students, and approximately 10 incoming kindergartners to Mastway immediately on day 1 of 2014. One of the effects of this, it's been discussed, is that by doing this, we'd have to look at redistricting about every 5 years or so as the population changes or as trends dictate. There was a second option presented, reconfiguring the schools so that Mastway would be kindergarten through 2nd grade and Moheramet would be 3rd and 4th grade, with someday 5th grade moving to Moheramet, and that's as the capacity would allow. So in option 1, the redistricting, you can see the enrollment projections versus the actual capacity of the school. And remember that capacity for Mastway is 369. This is option 1. Again, the redistricting. You can see in 2014, they're about equal, and you immediately get into equal or equalized capacity between the 2 schools by just moving those students out of their current school and into Mastway. This is a numbers slide. This is where all the numbers came from, so you guys who are watching this can try to and make sure that the homework has been done properly, and you can check this against the LRPC numbers. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Just thought I'd put it in, and you can pause and take a closer look at it to see where the numbers came from. Strict redistricting problems in option number 1. What are those issues? There's no grandfathering plan that has been presented to date. Some people have mentioned this at the meetings. It's going to impact 56 families, 66 children, and it's really just heartbreaking to hear some of these families get up and talk about how deeply this will impact them. It's just not a great option, not an acceptable option to most people in the community. I'm not sure if people are aware, but there's 11 current Moharamit third graders who are going to transfer to Mastway for just 1 year and then move again the next year to the middle school. So that's not ideal. And then, you know, this may have to be repeated based on how neighborhoods change and how the population changes. So it's not perceived as a great option, although it does solve the capacity problem basically overnight. Option 2, the K-2 and 3-4 reconfiguration. This is a really interesting slide. Try to take a close look at it here. I'm going to flip to my notes. Sorry. Talk amongst yourselves. Ha ha ha. Okay, so if you look at Moharamit over on the right, you'll notice the dotted line is the capacity with the top dotted line, the small dotted line is the capacity with the modulars, half-day kindergarten, and that's 409. And currently we're at 407. The capacity with the modulars with no kindergarten is 356. You can see the line there. And then capacity with no modulars. So just take a look at that slide. And over on the left, you'll see Mastway. So what this, basically just to net this out, what this says is that in future years, the parity is really worse because the Moharamit numbers drastically decrease and the Mastway number increase and stays very close to capacity. And in fact, we may be having the reverse problem with this in the future. It's going to take a minimum of 7 years from now, plus require declining numbers of enrollment to allow for Moharamit to get small enough to accommodate 5th grade. So 5th grade going into Moharamit may not ever even be realized. Mastway is very close to capacity and stays there. And it gets really drastic in the second year of the implementation. In fact, in 2015, 396 students is worse than 407 because it doesn't even include half-day kindergarten. So take a look at this, and the point is, or realize that option 2 isn't all it's cracked up to be either for fixing the issues or the problems. Here again are the grade level details and the numbers. These numbers were taken from the LRPC history and were pulled on October 16th of this year. This is the same, it's our understanding this is the same set of data that was utilized by Dr. Morse when he presented this K2, 3, 4 configuration. And basically this is the same information that he presented, but just a little bit more up to date. So just one quick look at something too. There's an enrollment peak in 2015 at Moharamit that isn't going to accommodate all those students. One of the things these guys did that put this whole presentation together is they decided to try and figure out a way to make the K-2, 3-4 reconfiguration work by doing a bunch of different things. Avoid moving Mastway 4th grade for a year, move all the kindergarten and the first graders to Mastway, blah, blah, blah. You can read on through the slide here to see what they did. The point is that they tried to make it work and they can't make it work. They cannot make the numbers work no matter how hard they tried. So it's our belief that option 2 isn't really, for a number of different reasons, just look at the numbers, it's not going to work. So some of the issues with option 2, it's going to delay all-day kindergarten. There's going to be 6 rooms needed for all-day kindergarten. It ignores what the teachers have expressed and the community about how they'd like to keep the K-4 configuration together. It eliminates the K-4 tradition. There hasn't been any evidence presented that the K-2, 3, 4 reconfiguration as a superiority for educational purposes. In fact, there's been some studies given to the board and presented at some of these meetings that show the opposite. This is interesting, and I didn't realize this until I sat down and started talking to people, but 117 current first and second grade Massway students are going to have to move to Moharamit. So you've got all these kids at Moharamit that stay there, and then 117 kids that are going to move out of Massway. So we'll get to a slide at the end that compares all the options side by side, but keep that in mind. And one more thing, the current second graders are going to be moved for only 1 year. Current Massway students have to transition to solve the Moharamit building capacity issue, while none of the Moharamit students are going to have to move. 60 incoming Moharamit kindergartners are now instead going to have to go to Massway. It doesn't eliminate the modulars until 2016-2017 school year. I don't know if anybody realized that. That's pretty significant. This option does not eliminate the modulars for another couple years. Moharamit capacity is 317 in the 3-4 configuration, and this is because of the kindergarten. So take a look at the rest of the bullets on this slide. Look through them, but don't forget we're going to have to add buses, transportation costs. This is at least our understanding. This is going to split siblings and families between the schools. There's been a lot of people that have gotten up and expressed their dissatisfaction with option 2. So option 1 and option 2, neither one seem palatable to everyone, at least in the community. So one of the proposals out there is to put all the kindergartners at Massway and keep the current boundaries the way they are today. The Moharamit students would then move back to Moharamit for first grade, which is an extra transition on them. And think of all those kids also having to go on buses further distances for a half day of kindergarten. So here's the numbers. Take a look at these numbers if we move all the kindergartners to Massway. Pause and take a look if you need. And then again, here's the grade level detail for moving all the kindergartners to Massway. So the issues with moving kindergartners, all of them, to Massway. Now we're asking the youngest kids in the district to have to deal with transitions. And of course, all those kids that got to know each other in kindergarten over at Massway, they're going to lose half those kids back to Moharamit. Massway students would not have to transition, and there's excessive travel time. Again, these are all, issues, and we're all trying to come up with solutions that are going to work for the community. None of these solutions is perfect. Also, in this particular scenario, you cannot eliminate the modulars again until 2016, and you can take a look at some of the extra bullets there. This is also going to delay full-day kindergarten until at least 2018 when you look at the numbers. So, a summary of the options I've just gone over with you. All three of these options attempt to achieve equity and remove the modulars in time for the 2014-15 school year. Option 1 is the only one that actually does that, but it's just unacceptable to everyone in the community for these 46 families to rip their kids out of that school, or out of Moharamit and move them to Massway. In option 2, it does not meet the Moharamit capacity goals for at least 2 years. We think it removes the social and educational benefits that these kids get by sticking with their school for the duration, and their teachers and their families. It has an unacceptable impact, we think, on the community, and there's been no direction given as it regards grandfathering, and we'd like to see that. We think that a lot of people are starting to lean towards option 2 because they view it as the lesser of two evils, and in fact, I'm not sure they've taken that deep dive that they need to take on it. Option 3, with all the kindergartners at Massway, it does not meet the Moharamit capacity for at least 2 years. It creates unnecessary transitions for the youngest kids in the district, and it delays all-day kindergarten until at least 2017. So here's this community alternative that has come up with several people, dozens of people really all contributing and coming up with another option. And we're calling it the Managed Enrollment Plan. And the defined goal is really equity, not equal enrollment, but equity. So redefine the districts so that future kindergarten class sizes are balanced and would reflect the capacity of the two schools. The 2014 projected kindergarten enrollment is 47 at Massway and 60 at Moheramet. If you assign 7 new students from families without older siblings in the school system to Mastway, it provides enrollment equity with 54 at Mastway and 53 at Moheramet. In 2015 and future years, this would look like about 51% of kindergartners going to Mastway and 49% to Moheramet. In this plan, if you have a child at Mastway now, your family stays at Mastway. And I said your family. That means all of the siblings too, the younger siblings as well. This is grandfathering. If you have a child at Moheramet now, your family will stay at Moheramet, as will the siblings. You have to retain the modulars for the same duration as all the other plans with the exception of the redistricting plan. So it's kind of a phased approach. We would also have to look at the special ed classroom and using an extended resource room or possibly talking to Dennis Harrington about some other options at that school. So with the managed enrollment plan, you can look at the numbers here now, look at them for yourself and see how they work. Here again is the grade level detail. Okay, and I think there's something missing from the bottom of the slide here, so I'm just going to pop it up like this so you can see that. So what do we think about the managed enrollment plan, this community alternative? Well, the good news is there would be no impact to the current students and the families right now that would have to transition out of Moheramet to Mastway. It's going to maintain that K-4 structure, which a lot of people have been voicing their opinions about how they really don't see the benefit of the change in the other structure. And there's all sorts of reasons that have been talked about in the community. It'll fix the cafeteria problem, and I know they're working on that now with some building proposals. There will be space for all-day kindergarten. It'll be available sooner than any of the other plans in 2016. And you know what? It doesn't exclude moving to this K2-3-5 option later. It just gets us more time to evaluate it if we need it, and it doesn't force all these families to move their kids next year. We think this is a plan that will unite the community, bring it together, not divide it. You know, as you're talking about the cultural boundaries or so, these perceived boundaries, it's certainly not perceived among the kids. I mean, the kids are all out playing soccer together or these different sports, whether they're Mastway or Moheramet. I mean, look at the ORPP group. These parents come from, whether they're Mastway or Moheramet kids, all together. We want to talk about building bridges between the PTOs and the staff and maybe doing some more things to bridge any gap that's perceived. And then focus on implementing some of the education changes, you know, some of the things that have been talked about, the STAR assessment, the Common Core, and etc. This is my favorite slide in the whole deck, and it's second to last, so you're almost done if you're still listening. Because I wanted to see all the plans kind of lined up with the goals and see which ones work the best. Or at least give you the most of what you think those common objectives or goals are. So really, we're thinking that the only plan that really unites the community is the managed enrollment plan. It would maintain or improve, at a minimum, at least maintain the educational quality that we all enjoy and experience here under our current leadership. It's just fantastic. It's going to improve, you know, we have to improve the special education space at Moheramet. You can see the 3 options that do take care of that. It would eliminate forced redistricting and forced transitions. So that's the plan that does that. Full day kindergarten, we're looking at 2016 would be the earliest you could get to that under the managed enrollment plan, which is terrific. In the K to 2, 3, 4 reconfiguration, folks, I don't know if you guys have ever taken a look at this in detail, but look down below, you can see the double asterisks. The plan forecasts make it seem impossible to be able to do that. Mohariment with functional capacity with the modulars, take a look at that. All of the plans are going to have to hang on to those modulars. If you want to eliminate the modulars, you can see the year in which that gets done based on the different plans. Only the strict redistricting plan gets that done immediately. And then for the busing situation, you can see how the 4 plans line up. So the managed enrollment plan, we believe it's a path to equity and unity in the Oyster River Cooperative School District. If you have any questions, I know there's websites and people to talk to out there. Anybody's welcome to contact me at brooke.keeler@me.com, brooke.keeler@me.com, and I can forward you on to folks who might be able to answer your questions. Thanks for listening. I hope we can all come together on this in one way or another. I'm sure we will. Thanks so much. Have a good night.